Life has a peculiar way of challenging us when we're already feeling low, as if it knows precisely how to twist the knife. For me, Emily, this truth became especially evident when I was 27, a time when I felt trapped in a relentless cycle of chaos that seemed to have no end. My days were consumed by a tedious job, the kind that drained every ounce of creativity and joy from my soul. It was mind-numbing work, as stimulating as watching paint dry, and yet, I couldn't escape it. The hours crawled by, each one a monotonous echo of the last. By the time I returned home each evening, I felt as though I'd aged a year in a single day. But home was no sanctuary. My evenings were consumed by arguments with Rowan, my boyfriend of 5 years. Rowan was a man of contradictions, a puzzle I could no longer solve. On his good days, he could make me laugh until tears streamed down my face, his wit and charm lighting up even the darkest corners of my life. But on his bad days, he wielded words like weapons, his sharp tone and indifference cutting deeper than any blade. Our relationship was no longer the safe harbor it had once been. Instead, it was a battleground where small misunderstandings became towering infernos. Each argument felt like a rerun of the last. The same issues, money, commitment, the future, recycled endlessly, like a carousel that had lost its music and spark. One unremarkable Thursday evening, we found ourselves at our usual diner, a tired establishment where the air hung heavy with the scent of stale coffee and old grease. It was a place that mirrored the state of our relationship, worn out, uninviting, and filled with a lingering sense of dissatisfaction. "Why must you always be so difficult, Emily?" Rowan asked, his voice tinged with irritation. He leaned back in the cracked vinyl booth, his eyes narrowing as if searching for the right words to win the argument. "Difficult?" I shot back, my voice rising despite the quiet murmurs of other diners around us. "You're the one who's impossible to talk to. Every time I try, you just shut me out." And so, it began, another round of verbal sparring, each of us digging in our heels as we revisited the same tired grievances. The words came easily, each one more biting than the last. I could see the frustration etched across Rowan's face, and I knew my own expression mirrored his. By the time we left the diner, the frigid night air did little to cool the heat of our tempers. We walked in silence, our footsteps echoing in the emptiness of the city streets. The distance between us felt like miles, though we were only inches apart. Back at our cramped apartment, the silence stretched like a taut string, threatening to snap. The usual noise of the city filtered in through the thin walls, a faint hum that only emphasized the stillness between us. Rowan retreated to the living room, flipping through television channels with a grim expression, while I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the floor. The ticking of the clock was relentless, each second a reminder of the precious time we were wasting. I felt as though I were suffocating under the weight of our unresolved conflicts, each one a stone added to the growing pile on my chest. Lying in bed that night, I stared at the ceiling, my thoughts racing. Where had things gone so wrong? How had we drifted so far from the couple who used to laugh until dawn and dream of a future together? Was this what my life had become, an endless loop of frustration and disappointment? The thought was overwhelming, a crushing weight that left me gasping for air. Something had to change. I couldn't keep living this way, trapped in a cycle of despair with a man who felt more like a stranger than a partner. But as I drifted into a restless sleep, I had no way of knowing that the universe had its own plans for me, plans that would shatter the fragile existence I clung to and force me onto a path I never could have imagined. The storm clouds gathering over my life were ready to break, and when they did, nothing would ever be the same again.
I shared a glance, both of us stunned. The truth hit me harder than I could have ever anticipated. They weren't merely pilfering from me, they were plotting my elimination, planning to cut me out of my own life completely. How could they harbor such malice? My voice was a faint murmur, pain and disbelief nearly rendering me mute. Avery, always my shield, gripped my hand tighter. "We won't let them succeed. Emily, you are not alone," she assured me, but the sheer magnitude of our next steps was overwhelming. A direct confrontation seemed perilous given their sinister intentions. "I need to think this through," I murmured, my mind racing. They believed they were manipulating me, but now the tables were turning. "We need a strategy to flip the situation on them," Avery said. Her nod, filled with resolve, mirrored my determination. They had chosen the wrong person to cross. As we strategized, the audio recordings played on a somber backdrop to our growing resolve. Every word from Rowan and his parents only fueled my will to fight back, to reclaim my life and dignity from those who so ruthlessly tried to take it from me. Dinner that night was like a charade none of us wanted to partake in. Rowan and his parents acted as if all was normal, their glances heavy with secrets. Their feigned ignorance was almost offensive. As we sat there, the chasm between us grew. The sting of their deceit cut deeper with each conspiratorial glance they exchanged. Driven by a mixture of hurt and defiance, I finally addressed Rowan. "Look at me," I commanded, waiting for his undivided attention. His gaze met mine reluctantly. "Do you truly love me?" His response was delayed, his smile forced. "Of course, I love you. You're my wife," he said, but his words rang hollow, his smile a mere facade. The next morning, the disappearance of the ramps felt like a descent into a nightmare. Stripped of my means of independence, I felt even more ensnared by those who wished to dominate me. At breakfast, I confronted them, my frustration boiling over. "Why remove the ramps? How am I supposed to move around now?" I demanded. "It's for your safety, dear," my mother-in-law said, her feigned concern as counterfeit as her pearls. "We thought you might fall. It's for the best." Their words, thinly disguised, revealed their true motive, to further isolate and incapacitate me. I met their faux innocence with silence, my quiet a prelude to the storm brewing within. Behind the scenes, I was mobilizing my counterattack. I contacted disability services and enlisted my lawyer. Their arrival was a jolt to Rowan and his father, their faces a mix of fear and disbelief. As the service team commenced their assessment, noting the missing ramps, my lawyer, always composed and direct, wasted no time. "We're here for a thorough inventory check," he announced authoritatively. "An inventory was made after Emily's parents passed. We're here to ensure everything is as it should be." As the inventory proceeded, the extent of their betrayal unfolded, highlighting the gravity of their deceit. Each missing item struck a deep chord of betrayal. Once warm and caring, my in-laws now found themselves trapped by undeniable evidence of their greed. Their shock morphed into desperation. Tears poured down my mother-in-law's face as she turned to me, her voice trembling. "We're so sorry, dear. It all just got out of hand. Please, can't we move past this?" Her husband, my soon-to-be ex-father-in-law, mirrored her plea, his voice laden with guilt. "We never meant to hurt you. It was foolishness, greed. Please forgive us." However, forgiveness was no longer an option. Their betrayal was too profound. Standing firm, I addressed the police officers, presenting them with the detailed inventory and audio recordings, irrefutable proof of deceit. "These are the individuals responsible," I declared, my voice resolute, marking a definitive end to this chapter of my life. The court proceedings were swift, driven by compelling evidence. The judge's gavel delivered justice, sentencing them for their crimes and mandating restitution for the stolen items alongside compensation for those items lost forever. Watching them face the consequences brought a complex mix of relief and sorrow. Justice had been served, but at what cost? The divorce from Rowan was both freeing and painful. Throughout the trials, my testimony remained firm, a cathartic release from the pain and betrayal I had endured. Now, as I sit on the courthouse steps, a sense of closure envelopes me. The journey has tested my resilience and strength, leaving me with a mix of pride and disbelief. My recovery is uncertain, yet I am making strides, literally and figuratively, that once seemed impossible. They thought they could break me, I declare with newfound determination, but I'm stronger than I've ever been. This chapter of my life, born from pain and betrayal, is defined by growth, resilience, and an unwavering belief in the possibility of a new beginning. I am not the same person I was before. I am stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever comes next with grace and courage. The punctuation has been corrected, and the flow has been polished to enhance readability while preserving the original content's intensity. Let me know if there are further adjustments you'd like. You said, rewrite this more long story segment. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT, here's a rewritten, extended, and more detailed version of the story segment, building on its emotional depth and narrative complexity. I shared a glance with Avery, both of us utterly stunned. The truth hit me harder than I could have ever anticipated. Like a crushing weight I hadn't seen coming. They weren't merely pilfering from me, as vile as that would have been on its own. No, they were plotting something far worse, my elimination. The thought clawed at my chest. They intended to cut me out of my own life completely. How could they harbor such malice? How could they so calmly orchestrate my downfall, all while smiling at me across dinner tables, exchanging pleasantries, Pretending to care? The realization was a jagged blade, cutting deeper with every heartbeat. My voice, when it came, was barely a whisper, as though the pain and disbelief had conspired to render me mute. "Why?" I murmured, though the word felt feeble against the storm raging inside me. Avery, always my shield, reached for my hand. Her grip was firm, her warmth grounding me. "We won't let them succeed. Emily, you are not alone in this," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil surrounding us. Her assurance was a lifeline, but the sheer magnitude of what lay ahead was suffocating. What could we possibly do? A direct confrontation felt like walking into the lion's den, daring their malice to strike. They had shown how far they were willing to go. No move could be made lightly. "I need time to think," I said, more to myself than to Avery, my thoughts spiraling. They believed they had the upper hand, confident in their ability to manipulate me into submission. But they were wrong. Their hubris had blinded them to a simple truth: I was no longer the person they thought they could control. "We need a strategy," Avery said, her eyes burning with resolve. "Something that turns this whole thing back on them." Her determination sparked something in me. They had chosen the wrong person to betray. As we began strategizing, the audio recordings played on, a grim soundtrack to our resolve. Every word from Rowan and his parents, every smug remark, every calculating plan was fuel for the fire building inside me. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about reclaiming what was mine, about restoring my dignity and showing them the strength they had underestimated. That night, dinner was a cruel masquerade. Rowan and his parents acted as though nothing had changed, their smiles polished to a fault, their glances heavy with secrets they assumed were still hidden. They thought they had fooled me, that I was blind to their duplicity. But I saw everything now. Each conspiratorial glance they exchanged, each overly casual remark, was like salt on an open wound. The chasm between us grew with every moment of their charade, and the sting of their betrayal cut deeper than words could describe. Finally, driven by a mixture of hurt and defiance, I broke the silence. "Look at me," I commanded, my voice cutting through the pretense like a knife. Rowan hesitated but finally met my gaze. For a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes, fear, perhaps, or guilt, but he masked it quickly. "Do you truly love me?" I asked, my tone unwavering. There was a pause. His smile faltered, then returned, though it was strained and hollow. "Of course, I love you. You're my wife," he said, the words as empty as the space growing between us. I studied his face, searching for any hint of sincerity, but there was none. His response was as rehearsed as a bad actor's lines, meant to pacify rather than reassure. The next morning brought an even crueler blow. The ramps, the ones that allowed me even a semblance of independence, were gone. Their absence was a stark, undeniable declaration of their intent to strip me of everything, to leave me utterly dependent on their whims. At breakfast, I couldn't hold back. The frustration and anger that had been building inside me spilled over. Why remove the ramps? How am I supposed to move around now? I demanded, my voice sharp. Rowan's mother responded first, her expression a mask of concern. "It's for your safety, dear," she said, her voice dripping with insincerity. "We thought you might fall. It's for the best." Her words, thinly veiled as care, were a blatant attempt to disguise their true motive. They wanted me isolated, incapacitated, completely at their mercy. I didn't respond. Instead, I let the silence hang heavy between us, my quiet rage a storm brewing just beneath the surface. They had no idea what was coming. Behind the scenes, I began mobilizing my counterattack. I reached out to disability services and contacted my lawyer, ensuring no detail was overlooked. When they arrived, Rowan and his father looked visibly shaken, their confidence cracking as the weight of their actions began to bear down on them. My lawyer, always composed and direct, wasted no time. "We're here for a thorough inventory check," he announced, his voice cutting through the tension. An inventory was made after Emily's parents passed. "We're here to ensure everything is as it should be." The ensuing assessment uncovered the depths of their betrayal. Item after item was missing: my mother's cherished jewelry, my father's collection of fine suits, the paintings that had graced the walls of my childhood home. Each loss was a wound, a stark reminder of their greed and deceit. Rowan's mother tried to appeal to me, tears streaming down her face. "We're so sorry, dear. It all just got out of hand." Please, can't we move past this? Her husband chimed in, his voice heavy with guilt. We never meant to hurt you. It was foolishness, greed. Please, forgive us. But their pleas fell on deaf ears. Forgiveness was no longer an option. They had taken too much, hurt me too deeply. There was no going back. Standing firm, I handed the police officers the detailed inventory and audio recordings, the evidence irrefutable. These are the individuals responsible, I declared, my voice steady, marking the end of their charade and the beginning of justice.